Ow! Ow! Not all heroes wear capes. Some of us wear sweatpants 5 days a week. Fable, the fantasy action RPG and infamous everythingist game, is a bit of a problem franchise. Let's make this clear off the cuff. I love Fable. I mean, I like a lot of franchises, but Fable was a bit of a formative experience. Play all the GameCube games you like, not a one of them's letting you punch a child. Jesus. Fable is a franchise that wants to empower the player to do whatever, whenever. And that should have been point one in the design doc, but as the games went on, it became clear that Fable was more interested in being a loosely related jumble of subsystems instead of something novel and innovative. Now, while I've got all 3 games lined up, I'm not interested in doing a complete mechanical breakdown of each game, because Fable isn't interested in being incredibly technically sound, like Devil May Cry. I can hardly critique the stories between them as well, because the games only have a casual commitment to good storytelling. No, the games are about you, the hero, the player character, and while I plan on bringing those bits up when it counts, Fable's only really interesting because of, well, you. I have some really strong feelings about these games, so you might want to slam a Xan or two before you get mad. I'll wait. If you weren't paying attention to the coverage of the game, I bet you think Fable's awesome. It's a game about going on adventures, cutting down bad guys, progressing in life and in status, becoming a world-renowned hero, and everything else is just gravy. It's an easy game, a bit of a free ride. The quests you accept will tell you almost exactly where to go, and teleporting is pretty unrestricted. Traversal is almost never an issue. The game is pretty and lighthearted and even sometimes funny. I gotta give props to a game that gives you a swear button. Combat comes down to player preference. It's not balanced in any meaningful way, but at least you have to be engaged in the game to win your battles. Pure magic builds can be effective, archery is effective, but the strongest playstyle seems to be playing a big dumb idiot with a big dumb weapon and buffing yourself with select spells. If you ever do get overpowered though, hey, you had to earn that through play. It was just part of becoming a hero. The story was decent, all the elements were in place, recurring characters, dramatic moments, an effective villain, and a real sense that things mattered. The burden of choice is handed to the player in the first cutscene of the game.
Now, get moving and stay out of trouble.
Stay out of trouble, but trouble's always there. From the start of the game to the end of it, you'll be making choices about what to do here and there. The pieces on the board don't matter. The scenery doesn't matter. You do, and the story is effective because you get to interact with it. Is he gonna say it? Will he suck it up and say it? Yeah, at the time, this was fairly novel and interesting. There's all kinds of subsystems at play in the game. NPC relations and marriage.
What?! I'm going to prison, aren't I?
Owning property, collecting weapons and armor, opening demon doors for great rewards, getting a title and customizing your character, sneaking and stealing. The game is littered with content, activities, and subsystems, sacrificing NPCs to an evil cult.
A pathetic contribution.
You don't like my fucking sacrifice? Fuck you, bitch!
It's a game that's trying to be worth the price of admission, and I really do believe it is. And it's still, by my count, the strongest entry in the franchise, even with the shaky base, because it has a clear vision and scope and delivers on what it needs to, while ponying up all the bonus content you never needed. The Lost Chapters just added more everything. Can anyone complain about that? Also, I listen to that Fable and Chill video when I write scripts all the time. I'm doing it right now. Fable is awesome. However, let's say you got a more critical eye, or worse, we're actually paying attention to the game's pre-release coverage. God help you, you poor bastard. Peter Molyneux is a treasure, mostly because he promises all kinds of ridiculous stuff, hypes his games beyond credibility, planting acorns and watching them grow into trees over time, having a family, starting a revolution and overthrowing political leaders. This game would've got blacklisted from China with that last one. Oh hey, Lionhead died. How'd that happen? Fable promised hope in big block letters to Xbox owners looking for a quality fantasy game. And while it's good and all, it was a cornerstone of Microsoft for years. It's enormously lackluster because of promises made during development. And even then, peeling back the veneer, it's disappointingly shallow in many other ways. And I'm tempted to say it's the best in the series, but it's almost anti-technical. Yeah, you can block and roll, but that's the bare minimum in this kind of game. The attack button is just that, and your power attack, flourishes as they're called, unlock only after doing enough damage consecutively. It's not bad, but it's weak as hell. At least it's kinda satisfying to do when you got a 7-foot club. The story is, regardless of if you liked it or not, just dumb. I'll link to a nice breakdown of the plot in the description, but the main issue is how Fable tries to blend its aesthetic choices with its subject matter. A ton of the material in the game, from your village getting burnt to a crisp, to being tortured for a year, to having your mother killed in front of you, is excessively dark for a world as bright, colorful, and full of the most cartoony people in video games. That isn't the real kicker, but having to reconcile all that cruel stuff with, I don't know, farting to drive off some homeless dude's harasser? Like, shut up, game. You don't get a free silly pass that squares well with torture. The morality system wasn't new to gaming, but Fable put it front and center. To hammer home the narrative clumsiness, Fable thinks it's sufficiently morally distressing to choose between killing your childhood friend in an arena for cash, or letting her live and losing the money. It's so cartoonishly distorted. This isn't a moral dilemma. This is, are you a total fucking psychopath or a half-decent functioning human? Basically every moral choice fits that description. It cheapens the narrative and the system. Binary no bueno, alright? Ignoring certain plot holes and contrivances, Jack of Blades actually might be the best part. He's not a smart villain, but he's effectively the Darth Vader of this game, a cool guy with a mask and a sword. And I think the game genuinely makes you want to kill him and aspire to some kind of heroism, so that's great. Aside from the story and combat being weak, basically every subsystem is prototypical or merely exists. So what? Right? The game gets a pass because it's the first entry, there were time constraints, whatever, but there's no reason to sneak and steal, no reason to buy property, no reason to get married to an NPC. These things are toppings, but not the bread and butter kind, more like should have been more deeply ingrained in the game and interwoven with the main systems if they were intended to mean anything or be of any value kind of topping. You know, fundamental toppings. Fable's okay. I like it. It's fun to play. Now for some controversy. Fable 2 is so good I've beaten it 6 times. I've beaten it more than any other game. I fucking hate this game. In fact, I distinctly remember getting this, putting it in, and just being disappointed, because it wasn't Fable, and here I'm gonna get into some technicals. Fable 2 is a spectacle, an absolute joy to behold, an eye-melting bloom and saturation parade. It's relentlessly pretty, even when it's burning your eyeballs off. Fable 2's music is incredible, because of course it is. The game being set 500 years after the first is a bit troubling. I was really into the pure medieval fantasy aesthetic, and now we got guns, and I'm getting a little uncomfortable. Fable 2 is morbidly silly and even offensive, and I'm getting riled up. I'm getting angry! That's not really why Fable 2 is disappointing, but in the long term it becomes part of the picture. I'll dive more into that in the next section. This game was disappointing partly because it feels very off to play. Fable 1 was grounded. You were a big character rolling around, interacting with stuff. It felt like objects were semi-realistically interacting with other objects. Fable 2 feels like every model on screen is rooted to the ground and can't move freely on the terrain, like they're being awkwardly maneuvered by some malevolent deity. The running animation never looks quite right, and your character skates all over the land. Enemies who get blasted back look like they're being pulled by strings. You'd have to play to understand, but it genuinely feels off. And that's only a minor point. Fable 2 is everything from Fable 1, but it's either worse or stagnating. Every single thing. You can play as a woman now, so that's good, and yet character models look somehow worse than Fable 1. They really nailed the creepy, uncanny valley, subhuman aesthetic the first was playing at. But back then, I assumed it was due to technical limitations. This was intentional. I mean, you can see what they're going for in the concept art, this decadent caricature of Britain, but that's not a great excuse to make everything look gross. Not to mention, there's maybe 2 outfits that don't look like trash, and the dye colors are flat and saturated fucking ew. Here's a fun one. Combat's broken. period. Like, okay, I hear you. Shut up, KBash. I love the combat. It's fun, and it's no worse than Fable 1, which was iffy too. Let me explain at least. Melee is half decent. Your attacks are pretty weak, or just outright slow and kinda powerful, depending on your weapon. The multiplier's gone, and enemies block your attacks constantly, so you have to use the new and improved flourish system. This makes you charge a little bit to do a big guard-breaking attack with high damage. It's fun. Watching swaths of skeletons burst from these is like injecting endorphins directly into the skull. Most of them hit in a wide arc, which is super useful for crowd-controlling swarms. The problem is, you have literally no reason not to spam these back to back to back unless you want to mix it up and get blocked. That'd be fine. I'd leave it at that, but Fable decided to jump the shark a bit. Ranged was fine before, but now you can target specific body parts after leveling up a bit. Popping heads is one of the strongest and easiest strategies in this game. Enemies absolutely roll over, and if you get in a tight spot, just roll away. Reposition and repeat. It sucks any semblance of challenge out of the game, but at least it's a kind of mechanically involved brokenness. How about that magic, though? I have so much footage of just holding B. Magic's been restructured and really sucks now, mostly because more than half the spells are missing from Fable 1. That's taking consolidation a bit far, guys. Basically every spell has targeted and AoE potential, but the easiest thing to do halfway through the game is just charging high-level spells and crushing an entire army with one hit. It's fun, but it's completely brainless. Even better, you can slow time in charge, eliminating any potential threat stopping you from charging. I'm aware this was in Fable 1, and that's stupid, but at least other methods in that game are equally effective. There's no incentive to not use magic and just charge away. I mean, dying doesn't matter, you just get up after like 3 seconds and keep on. But KBash, your character accumulates scars and other visual deformities if you die. There is literally a potion you can get with ease that wipes away all scars, and after a point, charging magic becomes unstoppable. It's dumb as Magic was at least fine before, and now it's pushing its stupidity. Basically, if you don't use the honor system, you can minimize involvement during combat and just shut your brain off. Behold the interactive medium. Oh hey, speaking of shutting off your brain, the little golden trail that leads you everywhere you need to go is necessary because of how open the areas are, how the camera in no way aids in exploration, how people aren't clear in their directions because they knew they were putting this in anyway, and because the unhelpful map takes a dog's age to open and it's laggy and just why? Anyway, it's probably a good thing it's there. I had it off for all of 10 minutes before exploration drove me nuts. But it bespeaks an inability to design zones in a way that's conducive to questing. Intuitive levels are cool, I will say. If you do turn it off, you'll be free to collect the many things hiding in the zones, so honestly the game rewards turning it off. Keeping it on means expediency though, something I value highly in games. Either case involves you shutting down the old soggy meat chunk in the calcium cage, know what I mean? Jesus Christ. Now, heroic progression and questing itself are dumb. Gating progression behind collecting an arbitrary number of renown points, which wants to seduce you into doing side quests, can be overstepped mostly by spamming the trophy emote in public. Like, this is despicable, man. That's an assumption, right? That what this is bad inherently, but the side quests don't exactly have the pull to make me not want to abuse a game mechanic. Except later when the gating becomes more extreme and the rewards become better for questing. It's not like most of the quests have lasting consequences or impact, minus a select few, and are almost always tied to killing X number of things. I get it, Fable, you want me to commit genocide. My B button is broken now, thank you. Stop your playthrough, dumbass, you need some pennies. Go get a virtual job, grind gold because elsewise you'll be poor. What a fun adventure this is. Like Fable 1, the story serves its purpose. Someone wrongs you personally, oops, he's the bad guy, collect the hero's adventure. Yeah, hey, on the down low, reuse the 2 major side events from the last game, the arena and the time skip torture slavery event. Abusing tropes is awesome! Then fight the final boss. Oh, everyone already memes this, but the final encounter is such an absolute joke. I don't care if some people thought Jack or the dragon were lame boss fights, it's better than nothing. And then Teresa leaves with some very ominous words to set up a plot point. All throughout your adventure, you have to interact with the new and improved morality system. They added another axis. Morality breaks down to good or evil and pure or corrupt. The problem is, no matter how you complicate the system, Fable, the game is still very intent on wielding morality like a club and treating it with all the gravity of a child's notebook scribblings. Are you a good child or a horrible subhuman vermin? Will you kill your friend because he's no longer useful to the bad guys or lose some XP? Do you want to have your age sucked away or this young woman's with her life ahead of her? Oof, yikes, girl. That is not a good look. Again, the game's morality system hasn't evolved in any meaningful way or become any more sophisticated. It's still all evil or all good, and now I'm playing moral calculus instead of role-playing like I'm supposed to be, because I don't want to get old. But hey, there's a quest for that, cause nothing f***ing matters. You know what else doesn't matter? Fable subsystems. Sneaking's gone, and thievery may as well be less important than ever, but at least you can do it. Talking to people is stupid because dumb dances and poses as a basis for communication is stupid. Dragon Age Origins is on the 360. Buying properties back and while getting absurdly rich is nice and all, there's almost no reason for it. The system's just tacked on. I don't want to gamble. I don't want to work. I don't want to dance for people. Marriage is there, kids are there, you have a dog, except there's no reason to have those things, and the dog's more annoying than helpful about 90% of the time, and hey, Lucian kills your family anyway! And the end of the game lets you resurrect either your loved ones, the people who died in the adventure, or your bank account. Like Fable 1, this installment has glitches. My in-game wife won't dismiss for some reason, and I don't want her to die in combat, and nothing is working, and there she goes! Dust in the wind! Oh, I'm on top today. The DLC is worth mentioning because they're what, 8 Canadian bones a piece? You get an hour of actual content and maybe an additional hour per if you screw around. But at least there's endless killing, and puzzles, and annoying NPCs, and dog potions, and Teresa is confirmed not evil, I guess. The writers were just fishing for plot threads. Look, the game earned its full retail price. I may not like the extra content or think it has any value at all, but lots of people do enjoy it, and it's all optional. It's like Sonic Adventure 2. I don't think the game is great, but I think it's a solid consumer experience. I think it's fantasy action RPG junk food. A smooth ride with a couple of bumps, but overall it's gonna let you lie back on a weekend and forget you have to live on Monday. But the review scores for this game are so acritical, indeed anti-critical, that I need to bring this game down to reality. And now for the finale. Fable 3 is a travesty, yeah, I said it. The aesthetics are debatably better. That's all you're getting from me. The road to rule progression system is a new way to gate the player as they've tried before. I don't care for the lack of a simple and clean menu, frankly. I don't want to go over and play dress up. I want that basic functionality instantly. Why is this hard for you? I think the unlocks on the path which you get by playing the game, basically, are intended to feel more epic by being locked in a chest. Sure, okay. But is it because you couldn't figure out how to make a menu that isn't laggy, or because an upgrade tree was too typical? Alright, I'll back off. I have the upgraded Xbox 360 and my game is fully patched. After about an hour of play, the game starts to lag horribly. Apparently this is a common problem. God bless. The intro is lame. You're not some nameless kid, which, by the way, is the superior starting point, but the prince or princess of the realm. This is your best friend. Your brother's gonna execute him because he's an irredeemable jerkass. You will now forget about this character, but remember that your brother is an irredeemable jerkass, and indeed attempt to overthrow him for the next 8 hours of playtime. And also, that's me. Try our new gameplay features like having your hand held for an hour through a doddering tutorial, somehow more painful than the previous two. Go make money to buy a stupid outfit you don't want, to get into a camp and discard the outfit 2 seconds later. Great. I don't need a tutorial for clothes, I get dressed every day. This game's pretty damn short by Fable standards, but it managed to fit in all the classics. The arena, limp and childish moral dilemmas, dealing with subject matter far beyond the aesthetic limitations and philosophical scope of your game. In this case, a proletarian revolution, and issues of class struggle in general. I'll give it credit for including multiple recurring characters that feel kind of important, but you do a task for them, make promises, and they fade away until the end. There's a narrative shift in this game because now that you're royalty and you've got to deal with the common folk, you feel far more alien than in any other Fable prior. However, this is antithetical to the point of Fable, if the point of Fable is the player becoming a famous hero by their own actions, choices, and style. You are now role-playing as somebody, not nobody, somebody. And that somebody ends up having a lot of people holding him or her to account for their actions. Suddenly, moral calculus is the absolute norm. I've never been evil in Fable 3 because I don't want the bad ending or to be trashy to the NPCs, because doing that would legitimately make you the worst person in the game. It's such an obvious attempt at narrative improvement that effectively does the opposite by killing choice. Unless you can stomach being reviled, I guess. Oh man, I can have good and evil, whoa! Doubling down on narrative stupidity, Teresa is back and she makes no qualms about telling you to start a revolution against your brother. The very second you confront your brother and talk to Teresa again, she says, like, yeah, he does bad stuff, but like, there's more to it than that. Shut the f up. It's so sloppy. Why didn't Teresa guide your brother so you could be forced to kill your brother for drama? Why didn't she tell you that prior to the reveal so you'd be forced into an inane and unnecessary moral dilemma when this could have been handled any other way? Or was it, again, like Golden Sun, the famous narrative lie for the sake of making the adventure happen at all? My favorite. Why am I asking questions? It's for plot convenience. Yeah, 3 installments in and Fable still isn't interested in tightening the story. What, you need more? How about making the real villain some vague tropey evil called the Darkness? That'll rake in the awards. How about doing exactly what you'd expect Fable to do and treat the one good guy who's followed you from the start like garbage and have him blinded, wounded, violated, and killed? Thanks, Fable, again, as always, handled with the clumsy hand of a drunken hunchback. How about forcing you to stop everything and become a real estate magnate? Because if you don't, you're getting the bad ending regardless of choices made. Because morality isn't about heroic actions and decisions. It's about cold, hard cash. And also forcing you to go and actually interact with the game because the plot is really short. Killing the king amounts to nothing. Saving the king amounts to nothing. The game makes you the bad guy for enacting justice on a dude who was confirmed evil by an all-seeing prophet. He comes up with some half-assed excuse partway through, and you're forced to ask if he even had a reason. Was there any reason at all for the random act of cruelty at the start? No. Fuck you, firing squad. Alright, time for the state to control the housing market. Seriously, you have to buy so many stupid buildings and do so much stupid work and waste so much fucking time. Hey Lionhead, can I buy your studio since it's available? But how am I supposed to fit in time to work when there's still all this killing to do? Kill 30 bandits, kill 50 skeletons, kill 100 shadows. Swords, psh, what are you, dumb? Charging's too slow in this game. I remember Fable 2. Guns can't headshot like Fable 2. No, you've got B, my dude. B is the only button you'll ever need because magic and spell weaving is demonstrably overpowered. Yeah, I complained about 2, but at least it's not this. Mix one crowd control spell with one damage spell, never lose a fight. Just pop, 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 watching all the bad guys drop, hold B and grow the blast, shove a Wiimote up my ass! Yeah, the game is pretty. Yeah, the game is cute sometimes, and clever, and honestly, it's genuinely funnier than the first. Maybe because everyone's so dry all the time, or maybe it's because of how little of a f*** everyone in Albion gives about anything. But how do you take a game with charm, and substance, and, I don't know, personal investment, and warp it into this pseudo role-playing experience with all the dressings, but worse or unchanged 3 iterations in? Fable started great, and while the second game was frustrating, it had quality pieces. The third is a train wreck and deliberately grounded the franchise in a swamp, somewhere to rot and stultify, never getting better, never weaving the gameplay elements together, never seeking to improve, and now Lionhead's dead. Fable 4 is in some other studio's hands, and if the rumblings are to be believed, it's looking better than any Fable up until now. Let's hope they douse the IP in a new coat of paint, remember what made Fable good, and improve the mechanics across the board.